Our reading today is taken from Mark chapter 8, beginning at verse 31. Jesus predicts his death. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world but lose their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels."
Good morning. We're in the second Sunday of Lent now, and we're thinking this morning about the cost to ourselves of following Jesus. As I was preparing for this talk, I was reminded of an instance when we lived in Bristol. We were on the way back to the car late at night. I think I was with my mum and Abby, and we passed a homeless man. I felt I should do something to help. It felt a bit embarrassing with my mum there, but hey-ho. I don't tend to give homeless people money, but I happen to have an M&S voucher for a tenner and a full Nando's card in my wallet. This was before you needed the phone app. They just used to stamp your card, and when you got 10 stamps, you got a free whole chicken. Now, anyone who knows me well will tell you that I love Nando's, but that night I sacrificed my free whole chicken for this rather confused homeless man. But I'm going to turn from my love of Nando's to our Bible passage for today, in which Jesus tells us that anyone who wants to follow him must deny themselves and take up their cross. What did he mean, though? What does it mean to deny yourself? Well, first, let's look at what he doesn't mean. He isn't talking about self-denial, where we give up this or that every once in a while, and he doesn't mean that we should avoid all earthly comforts. God does love us after all. But I think for most of us, the message we receive from the world through the media and through advertising is that we deserve certain things. We're told that we deserve happiness and the things that will get us what we want. We're told to do what we can to be successful, to follow our dreams and to look out for number one. But Jesus says to put all that aside. He's telling us to say no to ourselves and to ignore this inbuilt tendency that we seem to have to do whatever it is that makes us happy or comfortable. We might call this self-interest. Jesus is challenging us to say no to our self-interest, particularly when it conflicts with God's will or his leading. This means a dying to and surrendering of our own desires and personal wishes and living for him alone, even though at times this may be difficult. I've chosen to illustrate this idea of putting aside our self-interest with a clip from my all-time favourite Disney film, Beauty and the Beast. In this clip, the Beast has captured Maurice, Belle's father.
Wait! I'm looking for my father. That's funny. I'm sure there was someone. Is anyone here?
Bill?
Papa!
How did you find me?
Oh, your hands are like ice. I have to get you out of there.
Bill, I want you to leave this place.
Who's done this to you?
No time to explain. You must go, now.
I won't leave you.
What are you doing here?
Who's there? Who are you?
The master of this castle.
I've come for my father. Please, let him out. Can't you see he's sick?
And he shouldn't have trespassed here.
But he could die. Please, I'll do anything.
There's nothing you can do. He's my prisoner.
Oh, there must be some way I can... Wait! Take me instead.
You would take his place?
Bill, no! You don't know what you're doing!
If I did, would you let him go?
Yes. But you must promise to stay here forever.
Come into the light. You have my word.
Done!
No, Belle, listen to me. I'm old. I've lived my life.
Wait!
Belle!
Wait!
No, please spare my daughter. Please!
She's no longer your concern. Take him to the village.
I always feel a bit emotional watching this clip, where even though her father's urging Belle to run, she doesn't. Instead, she offers herself in his place so that he can go back home. She wouldn't naturally choose to stay there in this terrifying castle with the beast, even though Chip and Lumia are pretty awesome characters. But she denies herself the choice of going home and being comfortable for a reason, because she senses she can save her father. She sees something that's more important than her own comfort. This is what it means to deny yourself. To allow other people's well-being to outweigh your own self-interest. We too, like Belle, should allow other people's well-being to outweigh our own self-interest. In an extremely Christ-like way, Belle puts aside her freedom and comfort and takes her punishment on herself. This is an incredible act of sacrificial kindness. Belle sacrificed herself for the person she loves most in the world. It's relatively easy to put someone we love and care about above ourselves, but would Belle have switched places with anybody else? The Bible says that very few people will die to save the life of someone else, although perhaps for a good man someone might possibly die. But Christ died for us while we were still sinners. In this way, God shows his very great love for us. When Jesus asks us to do something for someone we love, even if it puts us out a little, this seems okay, but he also calls us to help strangers and to love our enemies, the very people who are hurting us. He asks us to deny ourselves and follow his example in showing love to all sorts of people, not just good, nice people or those that we love. Denying ourselves may mean sacrificing our feelings about particular people in order to do what God wants. Imagine he calls us to do something kind for a person who has bullied us, hurt us, left us out or laughed at us. We might be more tempted to get our own back on them. We may feel that we deserve retribution, that we deserve their kindness, not the other way round. We may feel they owe us. But Jesus asks us to deny ourselves in order to have compassion on these people too, not just those who treat us well. Or denying ourselves might mean sacrificing our time or convenience, putting ourselves out to help someone else. I find it's relatively easy to do what God asks of me when I'm not busy, but what if he prompts me to help a work colleague with something if it means I miss my lunch break, or to go into a shop to buy a homeless person food if it means I miss my bus? Jesus was willing to be interrupted and to help other people, even when he'd had a long, tiring day or when he was on his way somewhere else. It challenges me. Am I always willing to be interrupted? A few months ago, I was all ready to take part in a 24-hour running event with my running club. I had my slot all organised, 4 till 5 p.m, and just as I was about to leave the house, I got a call from my friend. She was in a complete state. I could hardly understand what she was saying because she was crying so much. I think in the end she had to hand the phone over to somebody else. Turns out she'd had a car accident and she needed my help. So, of course, I leapt in the car, pinging a text to the friend that I was meant to be running with to explain that I wouldn't be there, and I went to pick her up. Now, this did interrupt my plans. I missed the running event that I'd been looking forward to and training for. The kids had been looking forward to cheering me on, but it showed her great love to go and help her, and quite frankly, I wasn't going to abandon her. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells us that whenever we put others first, whenever we do something kind for a stranger, or help someone who's sick, or visit someone in prison, we're also doing this for him. In showing sacrificial love to others, we are also showing sacrificial love to God. So what about the second bit of Jesus' instructions, to take up your cross? This is an odd thing for him to say. At this point he hadn't been to the cross, he hadn't yet been killed, so what did he mean? Those who were crucified were the criminals who'd done the very worst things. Instead of being flogged or put in prison for less serious crimes, they'd be paraded through the streets, carrying the cross that they were going to die on. This must have been incredibly humiliating. They were being put on display and the crowds would jeer at them as they went past. They'd be rejected and considered cursed. They might even be deserted by their own family and friends for fear of association. So why does Jesus use this image? Because he wants those who are promising to follow him to lay it all on the line. He wants us not only to put our interests lower than others and deny ourselves priority in our actions, but also to willingly risk being looked down on for following him. For the crowd that he was talking to, associating with him and his other followers and sharing the good news would mean being rejected and ostracised. In this next clip, we see Belle kind of take up her cross as she willingly risks ridicule to stand up for what is right.
Get him out of here! Let go of me!
No! You can't do this!
Poor Belle. It's a shame about your father.
You know he's not crazy, Gaston.
I might be able to clear up this little misunderstanding.
If what?
If you marry me.
What?
One little word, Belle, that's all it takes.
Never.
Have it your way.
Belle! Let go of me!
My father's not crazy, and I can prove it. Show me the beast. Is it dangerous? Oh, no, he'd never hurt anyone. Please, I know he looks vicious, but he's really kind and gentle. He's my friend.
If I didn't know better, I'd think you had feelings for this monster.
He's no monster, Gaston. You are.
She's as crazy as the old man.
I love how she's willing to stand up for people even though it puts her in danger. She doesn't just hide in her house from the villagers. And we can understand why she'd speak out for her father, but then she also stands up for the beast. And she knows that the villagers are going to turn against her for that. But she risks her own well-being once again in order to stand up for the truth. Sometimes standing up for the truth can cost us too. In figuratively taking up our cross, we're deciding that we will face rejection or shame for the sake of Jesus, the one that we love, and for his truth. Although we don't necessarily have to risk death for our beliefs in this country, we might still face discomfort and suffering in other ways. It might mean that people insult us or laugh at us when we speak out about our beliefs. It might mean that people don't want to be friends with us or associate with us in case they get laughed at too. We might face anger when we hold a biblical view on something that disagrees with the people around us. And ultimately, we might have to choose between certain friends and family members or Jesus. In my own life, I've been rejected by friends because of my faith. At university, the people in my hall of residence couldn't understand the changes in me when I became a Christian. They stopped inviting me to go out with them, and I think they thought I was a bit strange. But I can absolutely say I was completely willing to lose those so-called friendships for my newfound faith. My life was so infinitely better, and I was so much more content having come to know God that it was worth much more to me than they were. At times, I've had to answer people honestly about my beliefs, even when I've known it's going to clash with their opinion. And it's hard in these moments to speak out biblical truth, and it's got me into some really awkward debates, and even cost me popularity at times. In the past, I've had to choose not to take part in conversations when my friends were gossiping about someone, even though they then accused me of being self-righteous. And over the years, Matt and I have had to challenge people in love for the things that God has shown us are going on in their lives. That's cost us, but we need to be willing to be used however God calls us to be. So far we've thought about Jesus' command to deny ourselves and his command to take up our cross. And the third part of his command is to follow him, and this, we find, is the purpose behind the first two commands. It's not going to be an easy process, and it will take time, but once we're free from self-interest, we'll be willing to follow God's leading when he commands something of us which goes against our own preference. Once we're free of the desire to be esteemed by others, we'll be willing to do what he commands, even when it causes us pain and humiliation. Then we'll be free to follow wherever he leads, whatever the consequences. If we are to follow Jesus and do as he taught, it will mean not fighting back when we're insulted or accused. It will mean forgiving those who have hurt us. It will mean showing love to our enemies, those who bully us or cause us pain. It will mean telling the truth, even if that might get us into trouble. It will mean not taking part in things that our friends are doing because we know it's anti-scriptural. It will mean sticking to our principles, even when it causes conflict for us. Instead of this, we may be tempted to look after number one by taking the easy path, the one that avoids conflict and pain or suffering. But if we do, Jesus warns that we may miss out on eternal life, and that he won't be able to use us as effectively as his hands and feet to do good where we find ourselves. So as I come into land, I'll sum up what I've spoken about this morning. We've seen, firstly, that to deny ourselves is to totally ignore our own wishes and personal desires, just like Belle did by taking her father's place. It is to offer our entire lives to God as living sacrifices, surrendered and set apart for his purposes. If we choose not to live our lives to please ourselves, but instead to please God, we will be able to say, "Not my will, but yours be done, Lord." To take up your cross is to be willing to suffer for what is good and true. We'll find that we may have to endure the same abuse and hatred that Jesus received on earth, and like with Belle, it may be costly to do the right thing. And finally, to follow Jesus as one of his disciples may mean setting aside creature comforts, earthly ambitions, material riches, friendships, and even life itself. But let's seek to become sacrificial disciples of Christ, not merely saved followers. Let's die to our own desires and live our lives for Christ alone. It's a difficult challenge, isn't it? But in it all, Jesus says, "Lean on me. When you feel weak, then my power shows itself most perfectly. Trust me, because you are more precious to me than the birds of the field. Your Father longs to provide all that you need." But will you deny yourselves? Will you allow the needs of others to outweigh your own? Will you take up your cross? Will you be willing to be looked down on? And will you follow me wherever I lead you on the adventure of seeing God's kingdom come and his will be done?